So, now in this lecture today, we will be talking about the genesis of relationships, the genesis of marriage, the beginning of everything. How did marriage begin? How God's plan began in regards to our relationship. Never lose sight of this understanding. If you want to solve your current situation, you have to go back to the beginning, as in mathematics. Go back to the beginning of the equation. See where you were wrong, fix that mistake, and the result from then on will be right. We are going back to the beginning for us to identify the right things and also the wrong things in order to avoid repeating the same mistakes. So, the genesis of relationship is based on this text in Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. God said like this, "Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." The Lord Jesus also quoted these words when someone asked him about marriage. In other words, here is the genesis of marriage, the genesis of the relationship. How was the original plan? How is the shape of a healthy marriage designed by God? Let's see this verse part by part, word by word. So, first he says, "Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother." Let's talk about this word leave. The word leave involves a letting go. It involves leaving behind. Leaving a place, you leave a place and go to another. You leave something, somebody, or somewhere for something else, somebody else, or someplace else. So, the beginning of marriage involves you leaving your father and mother. But not only your father and mother, obviously. When you get married, you leave, and you have to leave. For a marriage to succeed, you have to leave many things and people. Because there are things and people that will not work out within a marriage. When the text says, "A man shall leave his father and his mother," it's implying the following, which are in the life of a young man or a young woman, which are their closest people, the most loved ones. Father and mother, right? The young man depends on them. He grew up there with his father. When the text says, "A man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife," it says the following. If you have to leave your father and mother, who are the closest and the most loved ones in your life, let alone other people, other things, let alone some friends, let alone some certain behaviors, things that do not belong within this new family that you are making. So the first step for you to be happy in your marriage is to learn that you have to leave. Leave your father and mother, and not only that, not only these people, but leave everything that disrupts your relationship with your spouse. And you know what disrupts your relationship with your spouse. How many singles marry and have problems in their marriage because they want to bring their single life into their marriage? They want to continue hanging out with the same friends as when they were single, those friends who are still single, I want to do things that singles do. Now I want to involve their married friend. The person wants to have the same habits of when they were single on the weekend, going out here and there, doing things that they like from themselves and excluding their partner. They want to play their video games, to continue their sports, or to stay in some sort of activity that excludes or is harmful to the relationship. It's not going to work out. If you're not willing to do what is right, you man or woman who's single, to stop doing the things which are not going to fit in your marriage for you to have a happy marriage, then don't get married. Stay with mommy and daddy. Ask them to put up with you longer. Stay with your single life for as long as your friends are able to put up with you. Stay single, because to become husband and wife, you have to leave behind.
And that means leaving behind who you were. You see that sometimes people, they get married and we had this problem. They become so attached to who they were before getting married. Not just who they left, but who they were. So they were single people who had this independence of being able to be who they were, do what they wanted to do. But when you get married with another person, you have to obviously make a lot of changes in your life. If you don't have that same independence that you had before, you need to let somebody know where you're going to go, what you're going to do tomorrow, where you went, who you were talking to, because now you have someone there by your side that's your husband, your wife. So leaving mother and father also means this, to leave behind the person you were, the daughter, the single one. I'm letting go of that person today. Now I have to be, let's say, a mother. I'm going to have to be a mother. Even not having a child, I'm going to have to be a mother to him. He's going to have to be a father to me. Many people, sometimes they bring into their marriage things that were not resolved with their mother or their father. So they bring mother and father into their marriage. So many times the mother was not present, the father was not present, and that need, that feeling of abandonment, of rejection, it comes with the person. They go into the marriage with that problem that was not resolved. And with that problem, they ruin the relationship because they start thinking that another person that they love is going to do the same thing that mother or father did. So it's that thing you were talking about previously, of many women, going into the marriage is already saying, a man's not going to tell me what to do. But why? Because they're bringing in something that was not resolved from their childhood, from their adolescence. They're bringing that into their marriage. You can't want to resolve a problem from your past with the person that's there now. You need to be able to resolve that inside of you. That's something that we had to learn. I got into my marriage with an insecurity, and he had this thing of being proud.
Proud, hard-headed, yes.
This proud person, this is my way, this is how I am. He came into the marriage like this, and this affected us. My insecurity and his pride, it affected our marriage a lot. For 12 years, we were there, we almost lost our marriage because of that, because of these things that we brought in. We were supposed to have left it. We were supposed to have resolved it.
Speaking of which, sorry, I would tell her when she complained about my way of being. I used to tell her, but I was just like this when we met. Can you see? I was self-righteous, so full of myself. I thought that I was absolutely right. Because of course she had met me that way. But 12 years had passed by. So, what you're telling me is that you should never improve? You can never get better? Okay, your husband or wife met you back then, and you were the way you were, and maybe you're still like that today. You met your wife, she met you, and you were like that, but it doesn't mean you can't improve. There is no law that prohibits human beings from improving. On the contrary, there's a rule that determines that human beings who don't improve, they will disappear. This is what happens to many people. Because they don't evolve, they are tied to what they were back in their past, and they say, I am like this, I was born this way, I will die like this. This is my way of being. So they end up being alone because they're not flexible. They don't have the intelligence to understand that after you get married, you do have to become someone else. I will repeat that because it's going to be on the test. And I know that this causes confusion in a lot of people. So I'm going to say this again, and you won't hear this out there. On the contrary, out there you will hear the following. You cannot start being who you are. No, you can't get into a relationship and stop being who you are. You can't stop being who you are. Don't let that person change you. Yeah. I want somebody who loves me just the way I am and is not going to want me to change. That's so off track. You're lost in the woods. Lost in a fairy tale. Do I speak or will you? What can I say? Why isn't it like that in real life? Because when you're married, you are, in fact, obligated to become, you must become someone else for your marriage to work. Detail, someone better than you are. It's not just someone else that because on a change you'll certainly become upset, depressed, canceled out because you can't be who you were. No, it's not that. I'm saying you have to become a better person. Better than you were when you were single. Because now you have someone who is bringing another set of qualities to you. Someone who gives you immediate feedback. When you make a mistake, when you are single, you don't have feedback right away. You make a mistake over and over and nobody says anything. However, when you get married, you have someone that immediately says, hey, don't do that. And if you don't change, you'll have conflicts until you guys separate because you resisted improvement. As you said, you don't let that old person, that person you once were, back there to embrace a new, better version of you. Because of this, you don't become one flesh.
Because for you to leave mother and father, meaning, God's saying it's really clear to understand it. Your family, where you came from, who you've been until then. That's what it's saying. You have to leave mother and father. You have to leave them. You have to leave because now you're going to unite yourself with her, with him, and you're going to be one flesh. Meaning, it's very clear. That is very clear. You're not going to be that person anymore. You're going to be another person with them, with her. So you and her are going to be one person. So for me to be one person with Renato and him to be one with me, we're going to have to make some adjustments. We're going to have to put the pieces together for us to be one. But how are we going to be one if you have your way and I have my way? I think a certain way, you think another way, and we're not able to come to one opinion, one accord. Our marriage for 12 years, we were not one. That's why we had so many problems. When a couple has so many problems in their marriage, it's because they're not one. Because today, we're one. We don't have problems. We don't have problems with another. We were able to get to this objective of marriage that God gave. God gave us that tip back then. For us to be one, you need to leave who you have been until now. For you to come together and now form a new family. now it's a new mother, new father. I remember in my marriage, my father told me that. My father did our wedding, and he said like this. In the moment of the wedding, he said, "My daughter, forget mother and father." And the camera was showing my face in that moment, and you can see in the video, my face goes like this. Because he said that in the front of everyone. He said, forget mother and father. Now, any problem that you have, it's with him that you need to resolve it. And then he was giving the tip, but I just learned it after 12 years. But anyway, that's the secret. When you are happy in your marriage, it's because you became one. So there isn't that thing anymore of, our differences, they contribute. My way, my different of Renato, he likes his different way of being. I like it. Meaning we were able to unite and not have that thing of I'm like this, you're like that. You need to be like me. We don't have that anymore because we left it. We finally left mother and father.
And it's much better, right? We not only left our father and mother, but also our old way that hindered our bond. But it is much better when you become one with your spouse than when you insist on butting heads in battle of the egos over and over. And when we talk about leaving father and mother, it's important that you understand that another common thought that has damaged many relationships today is the issue that especially women and some mothers have. They have a tendency to put their children above their spouse. I know that what we are going to say to you here, most people don't like to hear, especially women. Usually when we talk like this, look, your husband or your wife has to come before your children. First your husband or first your wife, then your children. Usually people react like this. Say what? No. There is such thing as an ex-husband, but there's no such thing as an ex-son or daughter. We get this answer right away. Okay, so God is mistaken. Let's say here that God made a mistake. He said that the son has to leave his father and mother and join his wife, and the two will become one flesh. Why did God determine this? Let me explain this to you before that common emotional reaction comes out. Let's use our head here a bit. Why God determined that? This is how marriage is, or marriage should be. Because father and mother have children. They raise these children so that one day they will leave them. Children will leave their parents sooner or later. This is a natural law. This is a natural law of life. What I mean by leaving is that they are going to move on with their lives. They're going to form their own family, their own lives. So what do children need most from their parents? A child needs their parents to be happily married. First of all, above all else, you can see in almost all relationships in their testimonies we have here. Notice the impact their parents' relationship was to their love life. The impact that a dysfunctional family has on someone else's life is huge. If you really love your son or daughter, you will take care of your marriage. It's the best gift. It's the greatest legacy. The greatest inheritance you can leave to them is a good marriage. If you have a daughter, you father, show your daughter what it is to be a man, what it is to be a husband, because then she will look for a man who has what she sees in you. If you have a son, you mother, be the woman, the wife, who you want him to marry one day, because he will look for a woman that he sees in you. So this is the legacy you have to pass on. Parents are caregivers. We take care of the children. We raise our children for them to leave us And when they leave us, we stay together again. Our son is already married. He already has his daughter. We are grandparents. What? No. We are not making it up. How wonderful that is. Really good. He went to live his life. He formed his own family. He is now beating his brains out to also become one in his marriage. But we are here. Look at this. How wonderful this is. We'll be 30 years married in July this year. Do you believe it? Do you believe it? That's right. But
Only because we're one only flesh. Because if it wasn't for that, people, we wouldn't be here.
our son left us. But we are here. So parents raise their children like this. In truth, they should already raise their children like this. Now, we know many times some people don't have this option. Sometimes they already grow up in a dysfunctional home. That's why each one has to make the best out of what they have. If you don't have good references when you were at home, you don't have to be imprisoned by those bad references. You can choose new references. Choose new references. I had to change my references as a father and as a husband. I had to change this reference. I had to find other couples, other husbands, more successful ones than my father for me to follow, especially this. Why are we studying Genesis? For us to understand their mistakes and successes back there.
The original formula that's
Exactly.
there in that verse that we read.
Exactly. So children cannot take your spouse's place because your children will go, but your spouse will stay. And if you're not doing well with your spouse, you will end up alone. Therefore, the person should leave his or her father and mother and be joined to his wife and her husband, and they shall be one flesh. So, do you have children? Okay, raise your children, but don't put them above your spouse. Of course, it's different if you are a single mother or a single father, then you only have your child. Or if you bring a child from another relationship, of course, you have a different routine. You have to give attention to your child, and you see yourself in that dilemma because your new spouse wants to get in the family, but your child often resists. It's a complicated situation, a difficult situation. It's not recommended, but it's a reality of many people. You can manage this. But even with children from previous relationships, you cannot come and despise your current spouse because you put your child in the first place. Because your child, even being from another relationship, needs to see that you are stable and that you have chosen someone who will respect you and will really take care of you, even when they are grown and leave you to go their own way.
Yeah, and because you can't be one with your child. You can only be one with your wife, with your husband. So, and sometimes because of this disorder, you are not one with your wife or with your husband because you are putting another person before them. For us to be one, we need to have priorities here. There can't be anything in between us. There can't, the only one that can be between you is God, and he's not here. He's above, he's first. But you can't be one with your son. And now, people are trying to do this dynamic here of, and they're not going to be able to keep that going for a long time. Maybe even when they're a little child, yes, but there comes a time where that child, that teenager is going to want to leave. They're going to want to have their own life, their own wife, and then. So, and that's why also, you're talking about the young adult, and there's a lot of problems between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law because the mother-in-law puts all her affection. She loves her son. She wants her son. And then he wants to get married. He wants to get married to have his life. And then she starts to not like any person that comes into the life of her son. And then There is the problem of the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. But it has to do with this because sometimes the woman, she places her son, and usually it's like this, the father puts the daughter and the mother, the son, where they're not supposed to be. And I saw that with me, with my father and my mother. They were one. I never felt despised because of that. I never thought, oh, my mother loves my father more than me. Oh, no, on the contrary. I always felt secure with their marriage in my home. I grew up saying, I want to get married with a man like my father. I want to have that my mother has. I grew up like this. I wasn't that person that, I'm going to grow, I'm going to have my own career, have my own life. No, I said, I want to get married and be happy like this. So this unity, this one that they were and they are until today, it blessed me a lot because I, different from Renato, I had a reference. I knew exactly what it was to have a happy marriage. But I married a person that didn't have that. So we had to make adjustments and, thank God, we learned.
Thank God. That's right. Thank God. But have you understood this children's situation? Children need their parents to be well in their marriage, well adjusted, because it will provide structure for them and encourage them for the new family that they will form. So that's why when they get married, they have to leave, but actually the family will grow. It doesn't mean that you'll just abandon your parents, but your family will grow. You'll be making your family bigger with this new family that is being added. Now, when it says, and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh, this word joined is interesting because the original word is the same word for glue, something that really sticks, which has to do with being one flesh. Both are so united that they become one flesh. When God says this to man, it is not accidental, because women naturally tend to have this attachment to others. Most women already have this way of being, except for few. She already has this natural connection. Women are naturally more affectionate because she's a mother, she has babies, raised children. She's more affectionate. Men are usually rough around the edges and so on. So it's not usually something natural to a man to join or attach himself to a woman. But be careful. I'm not saying in being attached that the guy should be clingy. Okay? Being clingy is not cool. But attached means that, for example, you become attached to a wife and understand that you already have a woman to be attached to. Don't get attached to any other woman. Okay? By nature, men want to have one and also others. He wants to have the admiration of others as well. Wrong. Attach yourself to one. Is that female coworker that you text and you say, no, it's work. It's just about work. It's about work, but the interesting thing is that you don't send little heart emojis to the guy in the marketing department. Right? For that guy, you don't send him hearts. It's also work chat. But you send hearts, kisses, words of affection to a woman at work. Because the truth is that the man has this desire, this longing to be attached to his women and others. So, to be joined to your wife means you resolve the following. I have my wife. I have my spouse. She is my friend. A married man should not have girlfriends, except for his own wife. He has co-workers and so on. Of course, he interacts with women normally. You are not antisocial. But you know that a married man, there are things you will not confide in other women. Just as married women should not have a guy friend and confide in him with certain things and open up about intimate subjects with people of the opposite sex. Things that should be exclusively spoken about with your spouse. To be joined is that. You know those conversations that you have when you put our heads in a pillow. Those of you who are married do this. You know what that is. Where there's a moment in the day, singles, that we married people. One day you'll get there. But we lie down and face each other with our heads on the pillow and talk. This conversation in bed, this conversation with our heads on the pillow is so nice. And this type of conversation is a conversation that you don't have with anyone. You don't have it with your mother, your father. You don't have it with anyone, not even with a child or a coworker. Nobody. This is ours. This is yours. It's exclusively yours. It's this type of attachment. You're so attached to this person that your spouse understands you from just one look or listening to your tone of voice. Your spouse understands by a way of walking. They already perceive how you are from how much she knows you. She or he perceives if you're doing well or you're not by the tone of voice alone, by just looking at your face. So this attachment means this dependence, that you develop this dependency towards this person to the point of you becoming one. A growing intimacy that makes you codependent. So this is exclusive to the couple. And how do you build things? First, with exclusivity. Eliminate the competitors. You will never have this with your wife or husband if you give it to other people. If you give this to someone of the opposite sex, to other people, you will never have this with your partner. You have to have exclusivity. Secondly, you have to open up your heart. There are wives who are married to their husbands for 20 or 30 years and don't know how much their husband's salary is. They don't know what their husbands are thinking. They don't know who their husbands are with or with whom they are. They're not intimate. They are not transparent or close. How are you going to be one with someone who does not open up to you? Your husband doesn't know what you're thinking. Your wife doesn't know what you're thinking. So there's no attachment at all. There's just two people who are suspicious of each other, saying, what is he thinking? What is happening? What's going on with him or her? They live in a constant state of suspense. It's so sad to see this. It's really sad to see a wife in a constant state of suspense and fear because she doesn't know what her husband is doing. She doesn't know what is going on in the husband's life or in his head, whether he's going to arrive drunk or not, if he will come jobless or not, if he'll arrive at this time or he won't arrive. It's sad. But that's because this attachment never existed, this bond. So for you to be joined, you have to get close. You have to trust. You have to open up. You have to have courage to talk to the person and say what is inside of you to that person. Of course, there are some people who will never learn to do this and need to develop it. I wasn't a husband who knew how to talk. I didn't know how to talk. But as Cristiane said, I finally learned, and you can do it. You have to develop together and teach each other how to do this because it doesn't come ready-made. But that's why this is the goal, and that's why it says, and they shall become one flesh. It doesn't mean that this is something immediate. Shall become means it will become a process. You're going to become one little by little. You won't get married today, and on the first week, you'll become one flesh with your husband or wife. No, you won't. This is something that until the end of your life, you will become closer. So it's a process. Don't worry. Maybe you're hearing us talk about this today, and you're thinking, oh, Renato, I've been married for 10 years, 20 years. I'm not one with my husband or wife yet. If you have a past like ours, for 12 years that we weren't one, maybe until now you've been doing everything wrong. So it's understandable that you're not one yet. But it doesn't mean that you can't start doing the right things now. You can. Going out and fixing the things you've learned about in these lectures that you've been doing wrong. So go correct them. You gradually become one. You're not saying that everything is lost for you. Maybe you say, oh, my marriage is a lost cause. There's no way for my husband. No, it's not a lost cause. Start doing the right things, because the right things start to add up, and they add up in such a way of creating a cumulative effect. It's not just one thing you do that solves everything, but it's the sum of things you're going to do to have this change.
And a tip that I would like to give to the wives that are married with men who don't open themselves up, or who are too attached to their phone and all. Perhaps they're not even here with you right now. You're here, fighting for your marriage. You can't change him, but you can help what you want, to contribute for that to happen. How? Imagine you want to have this conversation with your husband. You want to have him open up to you, for him to feel free to talk to you. You want that. So think about what you can do to create this environment in your house that you can have this. So when you're together, instead of you talking about problems, instead of you criticizing things that you already spoke about many times, instead of you talk about things that are not pleasing, why not choose in that moment to create an environment that he's going to feel, to feel free, and you can do that. You know how to do that. You know how to make your husband happy. Perhaps the first day he's not going to do it. He's not going to open up. He's going to be kind of suspicious, doubtful. But if you start to create this habit, you're going to have this moment that he's going to want to talk to you, that he's going to want to say, why are you doing this? Why are you make dinner? You never make dinner. Why did you today do this for me? Why? What's going on? What's happening? No, I want to please you. I want to see you happy. So it's little things that you can do. You're not going to lose an arm. You're not going to stop being a woman. None of that. You are creating a situation to contribute so that can also happen. So for me to have a conversation with Renato, in bed on the pillow, I can't talk to him about problems in that moment. I can't complain about him in that moment. So he needs to feel free with me. And sometimes you choose the wrong moment. The moment when the person already doesn't talk to you, and you say, we need to have a conversation now. We need to talk. So that ends up, causing stress. The person becomes closed. They don't want to talk to you anymore. So there is a tip for you. Think of ways, ask God for wisdom, for ideas for you to contribute, so that when he's at home, when you're together, even if he's on his phone, on games, whatever, that somehow God is going to use you to touch him and to create that, at least from your part, a good moment. And if you persevere with this, you're going to see that suddenly he's going to feel bad, because he's the only one that's ignoring. He's the only one that is, living his own life, and you're doing something for him. You're not there, washing dishes or talking to the children. You're doing something for him. You're thinking about him. You're consciously giving him the understanding that you want to make him happy. Then soon he's going to feel bad, and he's going to want to give back.
You just have to believe and take action to see the result, regardless of how you feel. Maybe you say, oh, I don't feel like doing this at all. He deserves to get a plate thrown at his head. Okay, resist the impulse of throwing a plate, but follow the guidance you're receiving now. You will see the result. Then later you'll say, man, why didn't I do this before? Okay?